that we follow the open meeting law for the panels. Actually, I believe it's Alan's opinion that you actually don't have the power to do that, because they don't. We certainly can try to do that, but you cannot impose those requirements on that panel. And we're suggesting, in order to protect the confidentiality, that those meetings then not be open. Now, that's a very different approach than what we did before, and I think it's important for you as a council to debate that that's a significant change in your process, and have that discussion with all of that new information that we've been given this evening.
Okay, Mr. Nephew.
On the topic of the labor negotiation exception to the open meeting law, am I correct in remembering that the law requires that sessions that are closed under the labor exception must be recorded and become public data after the negotiations are concluded? I believe so.
Yes, that's correct.
So if we used that as a means of closing it, we would still have to record it, and all the list of applicants and whatever was discussed in the meeting would still wind up being.
That's correct. The law requires an audio tape specifically, not a videotape, but it remains confidential until the labor contract that was being negotiated is signed, and then it becomes open to the public at that time.
Okay.
You may even
So that doesn't really protect the confidentiality of applicants. That's
true. And it's likely that we might have to redact the identities of people at that point before we made that tape public. At least that'd be something we would consider doing.
That'd still be private applicant data.
We don't want to disclose private data on individuals' names, addresses.
Okay.
Can you clarify again, just for our consumption, and so she can hear it too, because she's got it? Because it is a complete departure from what we were planning on doing.
Yes, very much.
It's probably worthwhile hearing that again.
Okay. In council, my understanding where we are, the issue just actually been over the last couple of days, and as a matter of fact, just in the last couple of hours. Your process this evening is there is not likely basis for closing the discussion, and therefore you have 12 candidates in the booklet that Mr. Bernard prepared. For him to begin that discussion, obviously one option is for you to say, just refer to them as candidate 1 through candidate 12. And that's very difficult to do without revealing identities. By revealing anything, if you say candidate from whatever particular town, that's revealing an identity, and therefore we could potentially be in a breach of a contract that exists and potential litigation. So our suggestion this evening for your consideration is that Mr. Cantor believes, in his opinion, is in this memo this evening, dated today to me, is that the panels, because they don't have decision-making power, that you did not have the authority to direct that they be open, subject to the open meeting law. And therefore, the data could be protected. The panels would then meet with Mr. Bernard and go through the booklets, rank the candidates, and come back with a report to you. You would then select the final 5 or 4 or 3, whichever you chose, and choose then to interview those once they become public. All of that, since you as a council are obviously subject to the open meeting law, would need to conduct all of those sessions in public, and the candidates would be there. I think it's important for you to hear from Mr. Bernard on some of his thoughts on that process, and really I thought it was interesting, his comments about, remember these candidates, we have some very good candidates, are interviewing us too. And so they're trying to decide whether they want to come work for us, just like us trying to interview them and decide if we want them to work for us. And so I think it's important to hear from Mr. Bernard as well before you totally change this process, but our suggestion is at this point in time that it's going to be very difficult to go and continue with the process that we've put forward.
Okay. Mr. Rossbach.
I know that Mr. Bernard's going to talk to us, but in trying to determine whether we should hold a discussion tonight or do something else, I just want to verify because I went through, I read all of the candidates' profiles that were in our package. I was able, out of that, in my mind, to eliminate 3 candidates out of 12, and I need to eliminate some more. And so, I mean, what is the depth of the additional knowledge beyond what is in here that you're going to be able to bring us to help us, in my case, to help me further refine my candidates? Have you held interviews with them? Or, I mean, what additional information can you provide us?
Yes.
Please come up to the podium. Thank you very much. And welcome.
Yes, I have had telephone interviews with all of these candidates. We do not do the complete due diligence on them until the field is narrowed to a group that you want to bring in for interview. That's when we do the complete background checks, et cetera. We have done 2 reference checks on each of them. But at this stage, the additional information may or may not be helpful in narrowing the field further. I mean, I could answer questions that you might pose to me based on your reading of the material in the books. And that's what the purpose of my being here this evening. But all of these candidates, we feel, are qualified at this stage, or we wouldn't be recommending them as semifinalists, with the exception that candidate number 12, the one marked as internal candidate, is just a matter of our company policy. We always include any candidate that has previously worked for the entity for which they're applying, so that you as a city council aren't surprised that you might not have known of an internal candidate. We're not suggesting that that candidate is qualified necessarily.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Jelly?
That actually answers one of my biggest questions I had, so that was.
We
that was
always
very helpful
do
to
that because
I-
we don't want you to be surprised.
Yeah, I didn't understand that at all. That was, so, I'm
And I-
glad you clarified that.
And I might, at this
Go ahead.
stage,
Go ahead.
also indicate that 2 of these candidates have withdrawn. You should be aware of that. I'll refer to them as candidate number 4 and candidate number 9. I won't speculate on the reasons because that might divulge who they are. My other concern, and Chuck alluded to it, I think I indicated to you at the initial interviews when I met with you a couple of months ago, that we always urge councils to keep in mind that this is a 2-way interview process. These are highly skilled and I think highly qualified candidates. They are interviewing you as well as you interviewing them. I have some concerns about the multiple panel process in that regard. If this drags out over a significant period of time, you could certainly stand to lose some of the top candidates that I think we've attracted for you. And I would urge you, in whatever decision you make, to do it very expeditiously, quickly, and professionally.
Okay, Mr. Rossbach?
I would just comment, although I would certainly hope that our process would be done expeditiously, that if they can't tolerate this type of arrangement, they're not the right candidate.
I didn't say that. It was really a timing issue is all I'm pointing out.
Well, and so my point, though, is the same.
And I would have to say, I agree with Mr. Rossbach, that, you know, that's part of the common ground that this council came to was developing a process that we felt would be a demonstration of what people on this council have been talking about for the last 2.5 years. And that if we don't follow that process that we all reach by common ground, then suddenly that process isn't our process anymore, And it's